This is Andy,
And this is Matt,
and you're listening to
the Hop Podcast with no name.
What a Dumb Name.
It's so stupid. Episode 74, which for the first time in 74 episodes, I looked at you and said, "Are you ready?" And then I hit the record button. So,
And what did I say?
I don't know. I don't listen. This is another peek behind the curtain start to the episode. I have no idea what you
don't
said.
listen to my responses?
No, nothing.
Yeah, I believe my response was never.
Yep.
But always.
Yep. And I was like, well, here we go. All right, let's get started. And we are continuing your favorite word, mini-series.
Yep.
And we're still on complexity.
We are.
And we had given some homework.
We did.
Which
good for us.
I am shocked that people ask for it. I still hold the bias from when I was in high school that I will never ask for homework. But I'm glad some people find it useful. And what was it? What did we ask them to do, Baker?
So we asked them to take a look at an investigation of any sort, one that they feel like was done really well, where somebody actually took the time, or maybe they did it themselves, took the time to learn about regular work as part of the investigation. And at least went as far as defining the conditions that needed to be true for this event to happen, which those are stealing Dr. Todd Conklin's words. And in doing that, we then asked them to look at those conditions for this. Remember, the event is a moment in time, right? For this moment in time, and try to see how many of those conditions are normal. And you and I had a conversation right before this podcast about the difference between normal and common, which you told me I should explain more. So should I? Is this an appropriate time?
This is an appropriate time. This is one of those things where I'll tell a very quick story. We had to take a religion class in college. This is already a good start to a story about a podcast that's neither religious or political. But I chose to take a Buddhist class because I had never understood the religion and I wanted to learn more. So it was a Buddhism class, and my professor was from Korea, and he had an accent. And so they were going through the key principles of Buddhism, and because of his accent, I thought one of them was sensation and not cessation. So for 3/4 of the class, I thought it was about this idea of this feeling or this sensation, and then I realized it was actually about ending something. Totally changed the meaning of the class, which is the same issue I have with common and normal.
Yeah.
Because I assumed that anything that's normal in work in an industry was also common. And so that they were used interchangeably. And then recently, I don't know, past year or two, I learned that that's not true. So please share with the class.
Yeah. So we use 3 different words pretty often: regular, normal, and common. And when we're trying to understand the conditions that are normal, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're common. Meaning that the people who would be executing the task, if you said, hey, have you ever seen, for example, this schematic not written properly? They'd be like, yeah, that's pretty normal that they're not written properly. It doesn't mean that it's common. And why that's important is because if it was common, then every single schematic people would be questioning, right? They'd be saying, this one, it's probably wrong. We need to double check it because it's usually wrong. But when something's normal but not common, then oftentimes it's something that can easily catch us off guard, because we create a mental model of the schematic is normally right. It's commonly right, but it would still be normal for it to be wrong, meaning it happens often enough that it's not a surprise. It's not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this was inaccurate. That's never happened before. It happens so infrequently. It happens with just enough frequency that it's kind of no big deal to the people who are receiving the schematic. But normal doesn't necessarily mean it happens so frequently that we assume that, for example, in this analogy that the schematic would be inaccurate all the time. When we say regular, this is a word that Dr. Conklin has been using and I think suggests that we try to use more often. Regular is the word that we're trying to use to capture something that would be by definition what we just said, normal, meaning it's regular. Regular work includes the fact that sometimes, but not always, but on some amount of frequency, the schematic is wrong. That would be regular work. But it's hard. The words are hard because the mental picture that you have of normal would be like, well, if it's normal, you should always check for it, right? Like you should always, or if we say it's not very common, then it doesn't feel like it's normal. And so to your point, which you're almost always right, Matt, which I'm only going to say once. And unfortunately it's been recorded.
Yep.
It's
just looking at the time.
Specify.
I'm gonna get a tattoo of this time. Got it.
So anyway, for the homework, we wanted people to be able to look at the conditions that had to be true and label which ones are normal, not necessarily common, or regular, meaning it wouldn't be, this has happened before. It wouldn't be a super surprise to the end user if it's happened again. And that becomes really important for us to conceptualize, because if we go back to the last two episodes on complexity, which by the way, if you haven't listened to those, we highly suggest you do that before listening to this, because this will make a lot more sense. We have that mental image of a perfect storm in which there's a lot of ingredients swirling around someone. They don't have to interact with the ingredients all the time, but sometimes we do. And it wouldn't be a surprise if I told you that ingredient was part of regular work if you're the end user. Being able to picture that is a healthy way of picturing the way failure most often occurs within an organization, because we're most often dealing in this complex adaptive system as part of the failure. And that mental picture itself starts to change what we are curious and interested in, both pre and post event. So we had a chance to kind of do the homework ourselves by accident, Matt.
I mean, not really by we do this for a living. we didn't stumble into
you're right. It wasn't by accident.
A restaurant. And they were like, wait a minute.
We weren't doing it to fulfill the homework, though.
Yes.
We were just doing it because
this is
part of our job.
So, Andy, the reason we have a podcast about the subject is because this is what we do every day.
Oh,
let me just bridge that gap for you right
I thought
there.
you just wanted to start a podcast. I just
no.
I have to rethink a lot of things then.
Yeah.
So as part of the work that we did, we had an opportunity to learn about an event, which we'll leave it vague and anonymous because it's not from, our own world. It's somebody else's organization. And the reason that they asked us to look at the event was to see whether or not they had done a really good job identifying these conditions, learning about the process, learning about the potential for this type of event to happen again. And specifically, as in most circumstances within a bad event, they were a little bit stuck on, was this a person problem or a system problem? And, what sort of responsibility does the individual have that was part of this event? So that's the reasoning that they asked us to look at it.
Yeah. Quick background. It's a company that's been around for a while that has just recently started trying to do more hop stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So this is part of the journey. They're early on. They have some people who are trying to operationally learn as opposed to just do an investigation. So this was all sort of them saying, hey, we tried it. Can you help us review it?
Yep. And ultimately what happened in the event is that a wire that was live, but unintentionally live, was cut. And there was a whole series of conditions that led to that moment in time of somebody believing it was safe to cut the wire. And what was fascinating as we were going through what the team learned, which there were folks that did operational learning, and they did an amazing job uncovering the logic and the conditions and pieces of the process. And the assumptions that were made at that moment in time, you can see how those assumptions would be made based on regular work, based on the fact that a few pieces of the puzzle. There was a belief that there was induction causing a reading, which is not super uncommon. If we wanted to learn more, we would learn more about how common it is and what it looks like, and how we actually know if it's induction or not. Like, we would be learning more about those pieces, right? There was also a belief that a schematic was accurate, and it was inaccurate in a way that was a little bit unusual. Not super unusual for a schematic to be inaccurate, but in this circumstance, it wasn't a very complicated setup, and the fact that it was wired this way was sort of hard to explain as to why it would be wired this way. So it would be logical to believe in this moment in time specifically that the schematic was accurate, even though if you asked folks historically, hey, sometimes are your schematics inaccurate, they would say yes, sometimes they're inaccurate. And there's a few other pieces of the puzzle that I'll leave out because it gets a little bit too personal, I think, in terms of the organization. Matt, would it be right to say, apart from, actually, I can't picture any piece of this puzzle that wasn't normal? Like, I can't picture anything that they taught us that hasn't happened before, with some amount of frequency, that if you ask somebody to teach you about it, they would be like, yeah, that happens sometimes, and we normally do this.
Yes, and I would say, even we were in the room with them for 2 days.
Yeah.
At no point was anyone like, "Whoa, wait a minute, we're doing that?" And that never happened. It was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's how we do it. Sometimes that happens. Yep, the whole time."
Yeah. Which means that the conditions that had to be true for this event to occur, they weren't new conditions. And that is really powerful to know, because how you would learn about them starts to change, right? This group was very focused on the event itself. And if we were going to operationally learn, we'd pull ourselves back even more and learn about, the accuracy of schematics, learn about induction, learn about the usage of the equipment that we are using to understand if something's induction or not, right? Those are the types of things we'd be super interested in, which they created a great launching point to be able to do that. But that is very different, I think, than generally the way we would learn, especially post-event, if we were stuck in the ordered system mindset, meaning the picturing everything around us as a machine. Last episode, we used the analogy of a chain, right? I added a little bit of magic to your analogy, Matt, which, if I recall, you weren't super pleased with, but
Checks out.
That sounds right?
Yep.
Finding a break in a chain, right, and recognizing that there'd be multiple breaks in that chain. That's if we were picturing the ordered system of cause and effect is fixed. You can recreate the same events easily, right? They because they are fixed in Newtonian physics, so you can easily recreate a failure, versus this swirl of stuff that's around us, that are variable in many circumstances that we are navigating, just like we navigate a bunch of variables within our morning process. It is more variable than we tend to picture it because we have been normalized to our own process. And so if we picture everything as a machine, the way that we ask questions post-event is very specific to the event, to the thing that broke, to try to find the broken links in the chain, with the belief that if we find them and we fix them, everything's going to work again until something else breaks.
And fix them with duct tape and glue. Got
it. And then try to galvanize it so it never breaks again, right? So we think, but then we talked last episode of when we don't picture it as a chain, not only do we try to understand the swirl of conditions that are regular for someone to have to navigate, but also we recognize that we're not going to uncover all of those swirls of conditions. And we probably can't control all of those variables, even though we really want to. So we're going to have to plan for the storm, because the storm at some point in time will hit. So that's this idea of designing to fail safely, or mitigation, which the great news of the event that we learned about is, although this wire was cut and it was live, there weren't any injuries. And the reason there weren't any injuries is because there were successful mitigations that had been put in place and were being followed at that moment in time. To differentiate between the different ways of learning, Matt, you want to try like a little example? A little experiment.
This
You
would be
can
a
say
weird
no.
time for me to say no.
I mean, you could, but then you're going to have to decide what we're going to do next. So it's totally up to you.
No, we should do an example, but I want to speak to the audience real quick, if that's okay with you.
Oh, okay. Not me. So should I cover
not
my ears?
You can listen.
Okay.
No, because I want your input. But this is I wrote it down as you were speaking, which is rare.
So you weren't listening.
Oh no. Which is there's a part, I think part of what I feel like I own in a lot of our conversations is being having a background as a teacher is like a lot of what we're doing is helping people learn about HOP and how it's practically applied and how they shift their thought process. That's what you and I do a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's quite we had 2 days with this group.
Mm.
What percentage of that 2-day time period was spent just really going after this event and the logic that's used to get us to certain outcomes and the biases that we face? What percentage of time in a group of 12-ish people do we spend on this topic?
80 to 90%.
That to
For
me,
one event. Yeah.
and just to allow people the space to challenge their biases and their beliefs and really work through it. You have to have that time for people. If you want to see, growth and development in this space with individuals that are going to make change in your organization, they need to have that space. So I just wanted to call that out as an important part, because when you and I have seen really, really, really great development and change, a lot of the time we have these experiences with people where it's just a smaller group
where we can walk through their world with something very specific to them and have them challenge their own thought process. But arguably it doesn't happen with a, snapping your fingers and suddenly it's, oh, I see it now. It doesn't happen.
And honestly, not everyone in the room gets there sometimes.
Right.
But without that practical experience to take your own event and your own learning and your own biases and your own experiences and just sit there and sit in it for a while,
mm-hmm.
It's really hard to sort of continue the growth at an individual level with being able to practically apply this stuff. That was just my point that I wanted to make, because I thought it was so important that we had that time with them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And just to add to that point, the only reason that this conversation was even possible is because this same group had already wrestled through thinking about the logic of events that weren't their own.
Yep.
Which is why you and I always start with examples from our world so that people can look at it without an emotional lens, right? It's somebody else's world, it's somebody else's things. And usually at that point in time, people can get to a place of like, oh, I can see how you can look at this from this other lens. Then you can take almost the same scenario, put it in somebody's own world with their own emotions because it's real to them. And the logic leap there, even though it's the same, it's the same setup, can be enormous for people because now they're emotionally invested in the people, the outcome, and they have all the rest of the data in their mind of that would lead to a bias or putting their thought process in a certain spot. Right. So the only reason we could even wrestle people out of one spot was because they had already practiced it without having the emotion attached to it.
Which I think that was just my call out, because so often when we see organizations go in this direction, it's basically, hey, let's take some people, give them a dunk in the tank. Now we're good. Now go make change. And that's a really big ask. And so I just wanted to give an example as to a way in which some companies, some groups, some organizations go from a dunk in a tank, which is sort of able to wrestle with these ideas, to, okay, we're going to go try them, but how do we go out and try them and then get a chance to challenge our own biases with our own material to be able to do it again better?
Yeah. Which this group, I think, did a really good job wrestling with that even before we got there, right? They took that group, brought them together and said, let's push each other on this. So you can absolutely do it internally.
Yeah. This is not
you do it internally.
Yes, this is not so give us a call and this is just very simply like,
oh, you're not advertising.
No.
You're not doing a plug,
No. Please. it was just sort of the recognition that I think a lot of times in learning about this subject that we've spent 74 episodes talking about how challenging it can be to push our own beliefs and biases and thoughts, giving space for that individual journey to get people to a place where they are proficient at the practical application within your own company takes time, energy, effort, and resources. That's all.
So,
anyway,
about 7 minutes ago, I think I asked you whether or not you wanted to do an example, and that you could say no, but if you did say no, you were gonna have to decide what else we were gonna do.
I did both those things, actually. I said yes and then still put us in another direction. I'm happy to do the example. I'm so happy to do the example.
We can. I want to be cognizant of the fact that generally we have told people that our episodes aren't super long, that they're only, 20-ish minutes. And I think this example is going to take a little bit longer, but I'm going to set up the example.
Okay.
And then give people a little bit of homework to get us prepared for actually doing the example. So what we're going to try to illustrate is the difference between looking at an event and thinking about it from an event-specific lens. What I mean by that is that when we're picturing the world as an ordered system, the event is everything. Because in our mind's eye, that the event itself is the problem, as long as we can find the cause of the event. So there's a cause, and then the event is the problem. We can see the problem, and then we're going to find the cause, and we're going to fix it. And so it's the event is an indication that something broke in our process. Now, if we think about it from a complex adaptive system, the event becomes a symptom of the health of the process. So although in and of itself, it is an indicator that we need to learn, what you'd be learning about would be far wider than just the moment in time of the event. And the reason why we'd be learning just wider than the moment in time of the event is because we recognize that that swirl of stuff around us that led to the event, it might never come back together in that same pattern again. So if we spend all of our time and energy only learning about the moment in time of the event, then we miss a broader picture of things that we probably should be improving. So the 3 different ways we're going to try to learn are this. First, we're going to demonstrate just focusing on the thing that broke. So that's the ordered system mindset. And we're going to call that option 1. The second thing we're going to try to do is process specific, but the way we would be asking questions would be asking people to tell us what's bad about your process, what doesn't work about your process, what's wrong with your process, where does your process scare you, right? So in that model, we're trying to pinpoint things that are wrong with the process. So that's option number 2. Option number 3, we're going to ask that somebody just teach us about the process, period. Good, bad, ugly, walk through it. And our goal is to compare and contrast those 3 different ways of learning so that we understand where they can be helpful, because all of them can be helpful at different times. So your homework is to go grab any investigation or think about one that you've done, and try to decipher which of those mechanisms were used to learn about the event. Was it just focusing on the event itself? Option 1. Option 2, focusing on the process, but just asking people to teach you where the process is bad. Or option 3, focusing on regular, what a process looks like, good, bad, and ugly. And look and see if you can figure out which one is being used and how often they're used. That's the homework.
I like it. And then next episode,
yes,
we will start with me operation learning from you. Yes?
Yes, unless you launch off into a long story about something else first.
Well,
which
I got 2
is
stories
usually my
in.
job.
I got 2 stories in this episode, so I'm feeling pretty good. And one was
Yeah.
about a Buddhism class I took in the early 2000s. Anyway,
Nice.
That's it. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.
Well, that's it.
Yep, another one in the books. We did it.
If you want to send us any of your thoughts, actually fling us any of your thoughts, you can do so at the website www.highlights hoppodcast.com.
That's HOPPODCAST.com.
It's still such a stupid name.
It's such a different name. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.